Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast, where we bring awareness of sustainable health in a business hustle space. The Natural Health Podcast is perfect for the high-performing, business-minded individuals who want to work with their biochemistry to achieve optimal health. It's Friday, which means it's time for friends sharing facts about health, business, and overall success. In today's episode, we talk to Lysiane Chance, who will talk about all things fertility and how your burnout can impact this. Lysiane was born and raised in Paris, France, and she worked for 10 years in the movie industry after suffering from professional burnout. Not once, but twice in her 20s, she decided to change her career and become a registered holistic nutritionist, focusing on women's mental health. Now she's living in her beautiful tiny house in British Columbia, Canada, with her husband, and is focusing on her own real life goal, becoming a mother. An interesting fact about her is that she studied and practiced stage theatre for 17 years and played rugby when she was in graduate school and traveled to more than 30 countries by the age of 30. Welcome to the Natural Health Podcast.
Thank you so much, Maya, for having me today on your beautiful podcast.
You're most welcome. So you're living in a tiny home now, is that right?
That's correct. We're in British Columbia, Canada, and this is it. This is one of the rooms that we have. We don't have many, obviously. This is my office / yoga room / there's a Murphy bed right there for guests.
Wow, I love that. I always watch those TV shows where they, make tiny homes or they move in. I love it. I think it's so beautiful. And for you to have done, how long have you been living in one?
It's been 18 months now.
Wow. And you love it?
I love it. I wouldn't change that lifestyle for anything, except that we're actually planning on moving on east to Ontario, where my husband's family is from, because we want to start a family and we don't want to do this alone. So we want to get closer to create a village around a new baby.
Beautiful, beautiful. It always says it takes a village to, raise a kid. So I love that you're doing that. So before we get into today's podcast, I wanted to know more about you. Not only that you're just living in a tiny home, I wanted to go deeper. And I wanted to find out, in the bio, we said that you had burnout not once, but twice. That is crazy. I wanted to find out what have been the key turning points in your journey where you are today. If you can go a bit more detail in that, please.
Right. So this is not an achievement I'm particularly proud of, but this is my reality. I was probably born with a pretty weak nervous system and hypersensitivity to other people's emotions, stimuli, environmental stimuli, and that really, really drains me. So that creates stress for me. And when I was becoming an adult, I started having digestive issues that led to nutritional deficiencies, and I was always tired. And then all my systems starting going around, not really good. I had chronic back pain, I had painful periods. And in 2012, when I was working for the company of my dreams in Paris, I was in the movie industry working for Disney. As an intern, I burned out. It only started lasted 48 hours. So it was really fast. From Friday night to Monday morning, I cried. I just couldn't stop crying, not really knowing why and what was happening. But I was just overwhelmed, anxious, in pain, and just I can't do this anymore. So I picked myself up. No one knew at work, but I made the decision to scapegoat Paris and the Parisian lifestyle and mentality. I thought they were really negative, very snobby, and it was not a real future for me that will make me feel good. So I decided to move to Canada on the West Coast in Vancouver, thinking all my problems will be solved once I had figured that out. Obviously not, because it's not your environment that burns you out. It's the way you take it on and the way you deal with your stress. So in 2017, I burnt out again. I was working in the movie industry still, in visual overdone it, 90 hours a week for 3 months in a row on a very, very difficult project. And work had become my life. My back pain, my digestive problems, my periods problems were like all tenfolds. And one morning, my alarm clock rang and I turned it off, and I had this massive truth overcoming me. I cannot do this anymore. And I just started crying. And I was brain dead. I just couldn't move. I didn't even want to drink so that I wouldn't have to get up and pee. I knew I was not depressed because it was not like everything was dark in my life. I knew I had a really good life. But it just was not working for me anymore. And I just didn't know where I got it wrong. It was really like I followed the template of what it is to be a successful woman in 2017 in this world, like with very minimal things to deal with. Like I'm white, I'm privileged, I'm middle class, I am educated, I'm well traveled, you know what I mean? And yet it was not working for me. So I was really like, with burnout comes a lot of an identity crisis, really, where you're like, oh shit, what's next? So I started figuring out everything for myself. Turned out I had adrenal fatigue, so like very, very low cortisol levels. So like physiologically, I couldn't sustain my lifestyle. Like I had no energy whatsoever, to the point where even my stress hormone was absent. I had a intestinal condition, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which was completely polluting myself from inside. I was suffering from endometriosis, so very, very painful periods with tons of PMS, and I almost fainted in an IKEA store once because of pain. And so that led to starting my proper healing journey, being like, no, I just need to focus on myself and my health rather than my career, trying to understand what's going on and what I was born with, what led to one thing to another, and how I can have a long, healthy life. And for me, healthy means fertile, because one of my main goals in life is to become a mother, have a family on my own. And just as I was unfolding everything and getting better, I went to holistic nutrition school. I changed career, became a coach for women suffering from burnout. And last August, I had a miscarriage. And again, full identity crisis. I'm like, what do I want? Who am I? What matters to me? And I just decided to just stop everything I was doing and just fully focus on becoming a mother.
Wow. Gone from being an intern for Disney. I mean, you said that was your dream job. I can just imagine people listening will be like, wow, that's like, it sounds like a movie. Everything you were saying, I was listening and I was like, this is a scene for a movie. This is just setting the set, working as an intern, getting burnout, being like, you know what, I'm moving countries, move from beautiful friends, move to Canada, and it happened again. And as you said, it's not the environment that caused, well, part of was the environment, but it wasn't that you're just going to move and things are going to change, and you're not changing your careers, you're not looking after yourself. And I love the fact that you said now that, you healed yourself because you became a holistic nutritionist, you had SIBO, and you did all those things. So, wow, what a journey. And now on a journey to motherhood.
Exactly. So I feel like everything I went through was just kind of a parenthesis for me until I could really focus on having a baby, carrying a baby, and bringing a baby into this world, and having this connection with a little being that just grow into itself, and I can just wander and be there for them.
That's so beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. So I know that you probably know the answer to this question with what you said, but I'm going to ask you anyway. So here on the podcast, we talk a lot about success, that means different things to different people. Everyone thinks success is different, but I wanted to know for you, what does success look like right now?
Right. And I want to say it means different things for different people at different times. So like, had you asked me when I was 18, success meant working for Disney, and I did it. Great. And then once you've achieved something, you always come something else, right? So then I wanted to move to Canada, and that was success for me. Then it was having my own business and helping my own clients. That was success. And now this is all out of the table. And for me, success is literally carrying a healthy pregnancy, welcoming a baby into this world, and managing birth and postpartum gracefully, which is not an easy fate for me.
Yeah, I like that you put gracefully in there, because a lot of people think that, the preconception or the pregnancy is the hard part. But what about after? That's when there's not that much, I don't know about in Canada, but there is not that much support unless you're really, have a mental illness or something along those lines. But there isn't much support for mothers around that area, which is interesting. So I'm glad that you said that that's what success looks like for you, the whole journey.
Yeah, it's like it's once you commit to it, it's a lifetime, like it just until you die. And I'm full on in it, and I'm actually glad it's never gonna end. And it's not like a career where you can drop it and try something else. Your kids, you've signed for life with them.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. To all the mothers out there, you're doing a great job. So let's get into today's topic, which is going to be such an interesting one. And I'm excited. I've spoken about this topic to a number of individuals on this podcast, but I'm excited to see your point of view on this, because every individual has their own stories, has their own point of view in regards to it. So I've got a podcast on burnout, and I've also got a podcast on preconception, but here we're going to combine it together. So that's what we're going to talk about in this podcast. So I'm so excited. So yeah, it's just going to blow up, right? So let's start with, what is burnout? What is actually burnout?
Okay, so the referential is the World Health Organization's definition from May 2019. So please note how recent that is, and it's from one organization in the world. So we can take it with a grain of salt. So the World Health Organization says burnout is an occupational syndrome, which means that it comes from your work as a result from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. So it's a lot on responsibility on the person. And it's around 3 dimensions: A, feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion; 2, increased mental distance from one's job or feeling of negativism related to one's job. I've got it write it down here because it's very specific. And 3, reduced professional efficacy. So it's a bit of a difficult language, but really what they say is like, this is work related and that's it. But to me, it doesn't really make sense, because they talk about occupational syndrome, and an occupation really is not only paid full-time work. So it's not only for employees and entrepreneurs. Like, you can be really occupied in your day if you're a mother, if you're a student, if you're a volunteer. And all those environments and those lifestyles can burn you out. So we usually use that definition to explain what burnout is. Now, there's other types of definitions. There's people who say it's a nervous breakdown. A lot of people relate more to that concept of like, okay, I understand what that means. When people just collapse and start crying, and it's just like they're exhausted and that's it. Like, they don't have their nerves or anything anymore. In functional medicine, we call about adrenal fatigue, for instance, which means, again, reversed cortisol levels or low cortisol levels, which can totally be tested with some hormonal tests. But the reality is that your adrenals, which are the little glands in your back on the top of your kidneys, don't ever really get tired of producing stress hormones. And therefore, some people will call it HPA axis dysregulation, which is not really sexy, and just means that the connection between the different endocrine glands that trigger stress hormones are not working together really well. So what I want to emphasize is that burnout is really when you feel very, very tired and you cannot be relieved by sleep. You can feel anxious, overwhelmed, a lack of motivation that is different from what you used to be, very cynical, very negative self-talk or thoughts, and that can even lead to depression for some people. And so the line between, it's a spectrum between the, oh, I'm a bit tired, I will need a holiday, to, no, that's it, I've burned the candle on both ends, and now I'm in another dimension, which is depression. And on top of that, you have satellite symptoms, what I call, so like the digestive problem, the sexual problems, the fertility problems that are in themselves can burn you out just to fix.
Yeah, I love that you put in there that it's not just work, it's also voluntary, it's also students. Because I know when I studied, everyone around me, I can say, was burnt out. Because, and imagine the people that are working and studying, like
medical students, duh.
Yeah. I mean, we've studied, we know how hard it is, and you just get burnt out. So, and I can feel the sense of, so people that are listening to this might be like, either it's them, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm at this stage, or they know someone in the office that they're like, wow, they are burnt out. Because it's not like a rare thing. It's not like a rare genetic disorder. It is so common in workplaces because it's so common because we don't take time off. We think sick leave is for the poor. We believe working till midnight means we're a good employee. So I can relate to that 100%. I'm pretty sure the listeners can too. So I love how you put that together.
Yeah. And remember, it's really a side effect of capitalism, I would say, where, there's no work-life balance. They call work being like your family. And that's very like a gray area all in a sudden. I'm like, no, your family is your family, work is work. And in some countries, they take it to a whole nother level. Like if you're not useful to the company, if you're not productive to society, better remove yourself from it. And I studied in South Korea, and in there, I would say they have the most extreme cases of burnout where people are just like committing suicide because not only do they feel exhausted, but they feel like there's no way out and they're never going to be able to pick themselves up from and be useful for society and their company. And so they commit suicide. And when I was studying there, I was there for 4 months. We had 3 student suicides and 1 teacher suicide. And it's just normal.
Wow, that hurt me. Like just hearing that. So that's like 1 a month. And I read in Japan, there's an actual word. I think it's I can't remember the actual word. And it's actually suicide from work or suicide. And people die at desks. I mean, I know it's a hard topic that we're talking about right now. Suicide might affect a few people, but it's happening. It's out there, and it's because of work. Like it's because of work. That should bring you joy. That shouldn't bring you to the edge where you think of ending your own life.
Yeah, we grew up thinking that when you find your passion work, you won't work a day in your life. And that is part of the burnout culture. This mentality that you can give all your time, energy, money into ideas and creativity, into something that is productive, into doing rather than being. But when you hit a wall and you're actually given too much of yourself and it has side effects and negative side effects on you, we're just like, oh shit, I'm not getting what I was expecting, which is the fulfillment, the productivity, the recognition. I'm just left as an empty shell,
Yeah, that's deep. We went deep straight away. I love it.
Sorry, I don't do small talk.
No, I love it. I love it. And one other part that you just mentioned that just clicked on me was the part of when you are being, when you are, when when you are you, when you're in the moment, that's when you're most productive, not when you're burnt out and thinking to-do list, making things happen. When I got to call that person, I got to do this, then you're not being, because you're always thinking about the future. You're always thinking about what you're going to do instead of what am I doing right now? Like me doing this podcast with you right now. I'm in the moment. I'm here with you. No one else is around me. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm here with you, and that's when you give the most to others, and I love that.
Yeah, I love when it's just a good example. When people ask you how you feeling, they say, how are you doing? Again, like it's all about what you do, what you can show off for yourself. At the end of the day, what have you created? Rather than just, well, I am, and I feel that way, and that should be enough, right? It all comes from the French philosopher Descartes. Cogito ergo sum, I think, and I can do because I think, therefore I am. And that's just too far for some of us.
Yeah, that's deep. I love it. Absolutely love it. So now that we've spoken about burnout and, we've had our own little spill about burnout and, our own emotions throughout burnout, I love that, because now the audience might be able to reflect on that and actually understand that it may be impacting them. But today's topic, we want to talk about that it's actually maybe impacting their fertility. Either if you're male or female, it doesn't really matter. It's the fertility that it impacts. But I wanted to know, how does stress impact the reproductive system? Can you go a bit more detail in that?
Yeah, so we have 11 interconnected systems in the body that just maintain us alive and helps us reproduce. The reproductive system is one of the first that will shut down under chronic stress. The reason is you can survive as an individual of the species if you're not procreating. You cannot survive if your cardiovascular system shuts down, if your urinary system, if your digestive system shuts down. So those are protected. They have to be protected. But the reproductive system, it's fine for a while, right? There are other people of your species that can carry on the genes. So your body will be selfish and protect you first and foremost, which is great, actually. It's fine with acute stress. Acute stress is never really a problem. You can get really scared, have to deal with an emergency, and be more performant for it. That's fine. The problem is chronic stress. Chronic stress leads to oxidative damage in the body. So through, how do you call them? Toxins, not toxins. It's, I forgot the words, but like oxidative damage and chronic inflammation. And free radicals. Here they are, the bad guys. And that's how some people develop conditions like on the reproductive system, like endometriosis, PCOS, fibroids, and other estrogen dominance issues. And all of them impact negatively our fertility. And to give you an example, when my traditional Chinese doctor told me that I was probably suffering from endometriosis on my colon, she immediately asked me, do you want kids? And I said, yeah. And she was like, okay, you may want to think about egg freezing, because that's their reality as alternative doctors, to deal with people who are like, have had a very successful career, very busy, stressful lifestyles. And they come to an age where they want to have kids and they cannot, because the body for so long has shut down the reproductive system, their reproductive ability. And now they want a baby right here, right now, and it's not happening. So I don't want to say it's systematic, because there are some burnt out women who will go on carrying a pregnancy and giving birth, but this is really not ideal for the mother or the child. I know a few of them myself, and I can tell you they have huge guilt around passing on a weak nervous system or a poor immune system to the kid, and that makes them very weak to, in the first years of their life, to viruses, bacteria, and they end up having conditions and difficulty dealing with their environment. And it's really hard. And can you imagine how much more stress that will add on a parent when their own kid is not feeling well at such a young age? And yeah, again, the guilt of like, I may have passed this on a little bit with not treating my own conditions, right?
Yeah. The fact that you said some women may fall pregnant and that they're burnt out and things like that, and that it's not an ideal situation. I love that you made a point to that, because yes, you may fall pregnant, but the question is not, are you pregnant? The question is, how ideal and how healthy are you and your baby throughout the pregnancy and after the pregnancy, and how healthy is the baby when it comes out? So I love that you made that point, because sometimes people's journey is just fall pregnant, and that means, I'm healthy. But I love that you made that point there.
One thing I've always considered is the postpartum depression. And if you think about the correlation of the symptoms between burnout and motherhood burnout and postpartum depression, there are a lot of similarities. And I'm always wondering if they had been like really solid with their nutrient profile, with their support, the village around them, with taking care of themselves, will they still be postpartum depression? So really, for me, there's a huge correlation. If you had burnout before, watch out for postpartum depression.
Yeah, that's a absolutely great connection, and that's a great connection that we wouldn't usually think of. We just think, oh, I'm finished my job now, it shouldn't be an issue. But yeah, that part of after the baby, I think it hits a lot of people, and I've seen it hit a lot of my family, a lot of my friends, and there's not much attention drawn to it. So yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, we all about prevention. With alternative medicine, we have this ability to really fortify what your genetics have given you and to deal with your environment, so that you get the best odds at having a pain-free, long life and experiences, really.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I've been following you a fair bit on social media, and I've heard you say that you can only be really healthy if you are fertile. What do you actually mean by this? If you can expand a bit more on that.
Well, to go back to the systems, the interconnected systems in the body, again, the reproductive system is the first one to shut down if you're not healthy. If your body is not in homeostasis, which is the balancing of all the hormones and enzymes and nutrients and molecules, that makes you, okay, you are healthy. And so really the number one indicator will be, how is my reproductive health? How am I feeling in my ability to carry life? And I feel like it's a really good benchmark for optimal health, really. Otherwise, there's no real metrics, right? What does that mean to be healthy? Like, it's variable for one person to another. I mean, you have like rosy cheeks, that you can run a marathon, that you could go traveling without being affected too much by jet lag. No, if you think about it, like, healthy is you can get good quality sleep. You have energy throughout the day. You have a good appetite and easy digestion, fun libido, and for women, regular/painless menstrual cycles. And then you're good.
Yeah, it sounds so simple.
I know, right? It's a lifelong program, really.
Really, seriously. She's serious. I love it. So when should the individuals that are listening to this might be like, okay, I might look at, becoming pregnant. I'm keen. I'm excited to, procreate. When should they start looking at their health? Like, when should health be their priority, and what can they, I guess, do? Okay,
so I think that all of us, really, what we want when we pay attention to our health is to avoid pain and have a long life, right? Now, hopefully that's not dependent on whether you want to procreate or not, because there are some people who do not. And if we tell them, well, watch out, you can't procreate if you're not healthy, that's not gonna, like, they're not gonna relate to that. But it's still true, though. It's still true that if you're fertile, then you're healthy. But even more, if you know you want a family with your own genetics, it's never too early to take on fertility promoting habits, which can be really hard to implement. And I wish we were teaching that in biology classes when we're 12 or 13, not when we're 30 and we're being told to freeze our eggs to make sure we can potentially have baby of our own. And I call that the trimester zero. So we all know the 3 trimesters of pregnancy, 1, 2, 3 that are counting in weeks. And then we heard about trimester 4, which is postpartum, and that can be lifelong. But I want to emphasize about trimester 0, which is all the preconception period. And I like at the latest, really, if you want to like kind of cover your bases, this trimester will last 3 months, because that's the time for your body to develop a healthy egg, if everything goes well. Otherwise, sperm is 1 month for men, but truthfully, if you want healthy sperm, you may want to change habits, and that will take more time. So really, really, trimester 0, at least 3 months before conception. Ideally, as I said, teenage years, when women start menstruating, and we can teach boys and girls how to have a healthy, long life. And otherwise, the ideal minimal I will say 18 to 12 months. And that's what I've been doing. Even my baby boy, I've been on this journey for about 2 years now. So after recovering from burnout in 2017, I was like, okay, next step is optimal health, is fertility. What am I doing for that? And that hopefully will make pregnancy way less painful for some people who otherwise will get a double bar on a pregnancy test, and they have to stop smoking. They stop drinking, slow down working, work out, eat more, drink more, and go to bed early. And that is so hard to do if that's not what you implemented in your life before. So it takes time. We just want to be gentle with ourselves. And again, not being this burnout culture of like, I got my career, now I got my baby, then I got that. And so just like on and on and on. And there's no rest, no transitions from one state to another. And then when you've set that up, then you're pretty good, and you can hope that whatever happens sideways is fate, is like destiny. It's just part of your karma to deal with, and you're going to grow from it. It's going to be okay.
Yeah. Trimester 0. I love the language behind that. I love it. And the fact that even if you don't want to, have a baby, be, fertile in a sense, procreate, just your body to be healthy. All of these, like the interesting thing is all these things that we talk to women or men even about preconception are kind of baseline, besides some specific ones, a baseline for a healthy life.
Yeah, so many athletes, female athletes, who either never get their periods or get them completely erratic or lose them because they've been working out so much. I just wish people around young athletes or coaches will be like, hey, how is your period? How is your cycle? Because let's talk about it, because that's the main guideline for us to know if what we're doing is potentially too much for you. And maybe you're okay with that. Maybe you want to do a bikini contest. And you're like, okay, for this next year, I'm okay sacrificing my fertility so that I can win that gold medal. And that's your choice. It's fine. But if you don't know all the repercussions, and later on you struggle so hard to get those periods back when you just got married and you want that baby now, it's so important. I think it's all about information, right? Like power is information. Information is power. And when we know better, we have an opportunity to do better. And that's what we call informed consent, right?
Yeah. Those athletes, those women that just, work. It's kind of like working, because that is their work. Their sport is their work, and good on them from,
it's their occupation.
Correct. Yeah. And good on them from loving something and being passionate. I love that. But like you said, if they're educated that, okay, you might win your medal, but it might take a while to get your period back. Is the main reason from your experience for these individuals not to get their period due to cortisol, or what would you say?
I am not by any means a sport nutritionist and an expert in athletes, but the broad understanding that I have is that working out is physical stress. And remember, we don't mind acute stress. Chronic stress is bad. And when you're an athlete who wakes up every day at 5 a.m. and works out for 8 hours a day, that's just not normal. That's just a huge strain on all the systems of the body. We just have to know that and take that into account. Depending on your goals in life, then you may want to have the opportunity to adjust and revise those goals. If you're like, well, I have those Olympics I want to participate to in 4 years, but also I want a baby now. Maybe we'll have to talk about that, right?
Yeah, I love that. And it's interesting. It just all goes back to what you said at the start. Burnout is not just work. It can happen anywhere. And just because that organization states it as that, you have to take it with a grain of salt. Exactly your own words, what you said before. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I have nothing else to add on this. That's like literally like the sooner the better. If you're a parent of a teenager, please tell them that. Like, they don't have to kill themselves at work. Passion work doesn't mean no work. So like really untangle the burnout culture and tell them your body matters, and let's look at how it's reacting, because all the signs and symptoms are just a cry for help from the body. So we can't ignore them or shut them down, because it's like a plastic ball. It will pop out somewhere else. It will.
Yeah, our body's always talking to us, and we just need to, again, be in a moment and listen to it, so we're able to give it what it actually needs. Sometimes all it needs is just a little hug. So in regards to, we talked about, a healthy fertility journey and so forth, when to start it. And you said you've been on your own journey for the last 3 years or so. What does that journey look like? If you don't mind sharing that with us, what does it look like?
Okay, so I can't pretend that I know for myself what a healthy fertility journey, but for everyone in general, I would say it's something as close to your ideal vision of parenthood and across multiple pregnancies. So if someone wants a family with 3 kids, but then they completely traumatized with their first birth experience, that is not a healthy fertility journey to me. So, and one example that I can think of a healthy fertility journey is my mother, actually. My mother never had a problem with her menstrual cycle. When she was surprised when, as a teenager, I had pain, and she was like, oh, okay, well, I never had that problem. She got pregnant as soon as she wanted on the first try. She had very low symptoms, pregnancy symptoms, so like no nausea, no anxiety. She was just in bliss, She had an easy, non-medicated birth. And if you don't see me, I put air quotes on easy, because it's birthing. It's painful, but she was not suffering. And she chose not to have an epidural. And she had a very, again, blissful experience. She had a peaceful postpartum, and she enjoyed breastfeeding. And that's what she wanted to do. And she did this twice around for my little sister. For me, that is a successful, healthy fertility journey. She was never a smoker. She slept a lot. She ate as well as she could in the 80s and 90s, when it was full shame on fat. And she was an Epicurean, so like not eating too much, more of a Mediterranean diet, not drinking too much, and just like taking it easy at work. When you have no problem like that, that's your experience, that is so cool. That is great. That's what we really like. When you're satisfied and you almost feel like, oh, you don't really understand how it could go wrong for other people. That's my mom. She's super annoying with that. She's like, oh, it's so easy. I don't get it, you know? And hopefully you can have that, whether you're 21-year-old, you have one kid and that's all you want. And then 10 years down the line, you find another perfect life partner and you want another kid, and you can. Or you're a 30-year-old lawyer who absolutely wants 3 kids right now and wants to breastfeed each one of them for 2 months at least. You know what I mean? Like it really doesn't matter where your life is at, what age you are, but hopefully you can have that journey that is according to your expectations. Now, for me, I had to reconnect with my body because really with burnout, I was disconnected. Whatever was down my chin, like didn't matter. It didn't matter except if I was looking at myself in the glass and like in a mirror and I was like, oh, I can't wear that dress. I can see my belly. You know what I mean? So I did a lot of therapy. I did a lot of acupuncture, naturopathy. I studied nutrition on my own to figure out my shit, you know? And it was all about what information you can get from experts or for yourself. And the problem is that we've been told for decades that we could get pregnant at any intercourse we have, which is really not true, which is absolutely not true. You have about 14% odds on every given cycle, if everything is fine otherwise, to get pregnant. But because we always hear the story of the girl was like their condom broke, boom, she got pregnant, or on the first time ever having sex, she got pregnant, or she was drunk. And, you know, like we hold on to the stories and like, oh my gosh, this is me. Like at any point I can get pregnant or have to protect myself against that because obviously I don't want to abort or I don't want to have a kid when it's not my timing. But really, that's not the reality nowadays, not when we in this super toxic work we're living. And when our body and nutrition have nutritional deficiencies, our minds are completely busy, it's not a reality anymore. Now, the last thing I want to say is about a healthy journey, fertility journey, is like, let's ask men to take their responsibility on it. They're literally providing 50% of the DNA for the baby. If their sperm is not top-notch, it could be really difficult for the couple. And a lot of time when couples start struggling, it's the responsibility is on the woman, and that's not fair. I don't think that's fair. I think the men should be interested in their partner's cycle, the quality of their cycle and experience, and themselves take ownership and try to do changes as well that would last and impact their fertility and their life after the baby comes, because whatever you're doing for fertility is worth for kids as well.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, 100%. I agree with a lot of the pressure is put on women. You know, we get people coming through clinic and it's kind of like the woman wants to do the journey, but it's like, where are you getting the sperm from? Who's the sperm person? Who's providing that? Are they on the journey with you? Because it's not just your journey, you know, unless, you know, you want to have a kid by yourself and you want to be a single mum, and that's a choice that you make. By getting a donor and so forth. But like you said, that is important. That is very important to have them to come together. And it's interesting the fact that you said also that men, or, you know, your partner, whoever that is, should be aware of your cycle. That's interesting because from my experience, men and cycles, it's like, oh, that's a no-go. Don't want to go there.
But I feel also it's because we don't know. We're shy about it. We're shamed about it. And if we really get into our power and understand our bleeding periods and connection to nature and understand that everything is cyclical and we're part of nature and we're cyclical. And again, that's also part of the burnout culture, is like working on a masculine 24 hours clock where every 24 hours we can do the same thing. Well, that doesn't work for women. That is not a thing for women. And that is a perfect example. Like all the gyms that sell you gym memberships, and they're like, you have this class every week at the same time of the week. Well, that doesn't work for women. They cannot show up every week for the same type of activity. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. We get frustrated with ourselves. It's like, I don't understand. Last week I was ovulating, so I was on top of it. And this week I'm premenstrual and I cannot do it. What's going on? But we don't understand because we're not making this connection. I am very vocal about what's going on for my cycle with my husband. And I have an app where I track everything. And I explain to him, listen, this week, we're not planning anything social. I'm not going to be able to show up. That's not going to be fun for me. I'm going to have social anxiety. I'm going to want to like cut off the gathering because I'm premenstrual. Or on the opposite, hey, baby, this is a ovulation weekend. Let's just go crazy and let's do something fun and different. And really, like, once you empower yourself that way, it just makes it so clear, so much easier. And you can just go with the flow, literally.
Yeah, I love that. It was like when you were talking, I had this like a light bulb moment, and I was like, especially when you said the gym membership, having that class every Wednesday morning, and it's like, I can't do that because my body is not the same every Wednesday morning. And it's interesting that you said it's run on a men's clock where it's a circle. It's like, yep, we should be able to do this because you can do repetitive things, but there's so much happening inside of a woman's body. Not that there isn't in a men's body, but there's so much happening in the cycles in a female's body that we need to understand that. What does that mean? What does that day mean for us? Oh, okay, that's going to, and understand how we work. And I love that you said, no, I can't be social this week. I can't do that this week because I'm going to get social anxiety. And it's not that you have social anxiety 24/7. It's the fact that your hormones are at a certain level that's providing you with this anxiety at that certain time.
And one more thing we realize is that if we go against who we really are, it goes sideways. It doesn't work. But for women, living in a masculine world, we have to understand how we work and accept that we're different and embrace that difference. And our partners, our husbands, our fathers, our sons, uncle, cousins, whatever, they're willing to be open to that. They just don't know. They just don't understand. So if we don't understand ourselves and show them and explain to them how it works, there's still going to be this dichotomy, this misunderstanding. But once this is cleared up and just like better off.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're appropriating the word nigga.
Yeah.
It's like for us being like, yes, I'm on my periods and yes, I'm going to be a bitch today. Deal with it. Know what I mean?
Yeah. I absolutely. I did break out a little bit there, but that's okay. We understood what you were trying to say. And I love the fact that you're so passionate about it because you had to go through that yourself. And I can sense the passion. I can sense that, you want to share this with all these women and be like, girl, take your power back, get your flow back. I can sense that. And I love that. So I'm so glad that you've come on today's show. And if for anyone that's listening, we did have some technical issues before this podcast. That's why there may be a little bit of a delay, but we had it was apparently Lysiane has too much energy and it's creating this tension between our internets.
That's my excuse for not doing well with technology, is like I have so much energy inside of me, it just doesn't work with technology.
I love that. Look, the other question that I wanted to ask you, how can you focus on optimal health through reproductive health so the audience can achieve their business and personal goals? Because the women that are listening to this are either working or they have their own business, and hearing this might be a bit of a light bulb moment for them. But how can they focus on their optimal journey? What can you provide them with?
Yeah. So again, if as a woman you pay attention to your cycle, you can use it at your own advantage for your business goals. So that when you're ovulating, you have the most energy and you're the most vocal for yourself. So that's when you can go for asking to get that big project. You can ask for a pay raise. You can ask for promotion. You can shine in presentations, you know? Before that, you're more into networking, socializing, and getting to know new people. And after that, it's more about, you know, dealing with stats and bookkeeping, for instance, or kind of like closing up your projects, and before you can move on to something else. So once you know that, you can just manage your agenda. I'm like, well, this thing, I'm going to do it next week because I know that's when I'm going to be in the best mental and physical state to tackle that. And it's going to be easy. It's going to be enjoyable. I'm not going to like struggle through it, and also be vocal about it. Listen, I'm not going to do this podcast interview on that day because it's not working for me physiologically. How about we do it in 2 weeks? And it's going to be so easy when women do that more often and be like, oh, yeah, okay, that makes sense, whatever. So I think that's a huge thing that you can do. Now, if reproductive health is a personal goal, be aware that pregnancy and birth is like running a ultra marathon. I feel like if we put in this idea of like, it's not just something that happens and you just go through it, this beyond yourself. And it's like, no. You're going to run an ultra marathon as a woman, so just get ready for it. This is the challenge of your life, and it's going to be so challenging, especially for the first time, like an ultra marathon for the first time would be for anyone. So just like be aware of it and check all the block to your fertility and how you can prepare for it. Physiologically, mentally, practically. Like my husband and I are deciding to move house before we giving birth because we want to have the support in postpartum of his family. That is really like we thought it through, you know, and we're changing things so that we can achieve that goal. For men, it's all about lifestyle. There's always a cost benefits analysis. You love smoking weed? Okay, are you okay with it impacting your ability to have an erection and the quality of your sperm? If so, then that's fine. Your choice. Is your partner okay with that? If so, that's fine. But like really going through that together, I think that's fundamental. And also the basics. Heavy metal toxicity, you know, it hasn't been proven scientifically because there's really little research ever done on hormonal health, on pregnancies and miscarriages. I'm a naturopathic doctor that a lot of first pregnancies end in early miscarriages because the body takes the opportunity to offload tons of toxins and heavy metals that are otherwise extremely hard to extract from the female body, to get rid of it, do a little internal cleanup, and then move on to the next thing. Okay, cool. Well, if that's a mechanism that happens, it is still extremely traumatizing as a woman who really wants to have a baby in her hands to go through a miscarriage. Mm. And if you deal with heavy metals and your toxins inside, maybe you increase the odds of you avoiding a miscarriage on the first pregnancy, or the second one after long, time, like 6-7 years of in between kids. Heat can really impact your ability for men to produce sperm. EMFs exposure, so all the laptops we're close to around the breasts, the cell phones around the breast, or the uterus, the ovaries. Obviously, nutrition, water intakes, coffee, drugs, all of this. Like those are the basics, but like people don't think about it. They're just like, hey, do you want to have a baby? Yes, I do. Okay, cool, let's try. And that's it. And it can work. Great if it does. If it doesn't, then you're going to have to do this work anyway.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And, we can go back to talking as the fact of, my mom, my grandma, I worked for them. But the thing is, things were different, and it depends also what country you live in, They might have different work weeks. I know that France has a shorter work week or something along those lines. I don't know if it's changed, but I remember studying that at school. They only had, I think, 35-day work week. Is that right?
35 hours.
35 hours. Yeah. 35
and
hours.
Everything on top. A lot of people do 38, 40, but they paid for that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and those things are affecting you. Back in the days, the woman used to stay at home and her work was the house, which is work in itself. But, EMFs weren't around. So many toxins weren't around. The water may have been less polluted and things like that. So there's so many things that are impacting it. So I love that you've put that in there, because a lot of people are like, what? Like, toxicity, like my water may be impacting my fertility. It doesn't link in their head. But thanks, to you, we're able to share this information that, yes, it does impact your 0 trimester, your first, second, third, fourth trimester. So yeah, I love that. What I wanted to know also was so someone listening to end the podcast, because we're coming to the end of it, what are some practical tips for the audience to incorporate to be healthy, successful, but also fertile?
It all starts with being curious about your own body. So list all the things that could be bad for conception and a baby, and wean off them slowly, transition off them, switch them, and try to assess that prior. And parent yourself, because the reality is, like, if it's so hard for you to stop smoking weed when you want to have a baby, it's interesting in what you're going to have to tell them later on when they do stuff that are not really healthy for themselves. So if we want to be good parents for others, I think we need to be good parents to ourselves and have a reality check sometimes. Is that really something you really care and you really want? And under which conditions, right? And finally, get professional supports. Like, get your team of experts around you who are going to be here to support you and guide you through the immense knowledge base that we have access to right now. And it's going to be really hard. And if something goes wrong, that you can rely on. Like, when I had the miscarriage in August, I had no one. I didn't do that. I didn't prepare. So my usual traditional specialist knew about it, but they were not the people who can help me through miscarriage, which is very specific. And I didn't have a midwife. I didn't have a gynecologist. I didn't have a doctor specializing in that who could support me through it. And that had a huge impact on me emotionally, psychologically, and physically. And it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't. So yeah, really getting clear on our goals. Is it more important for you to get this big project done or to bring life into this world in the next 18 months? Just making sure you make space in your life for a baby, because the more you're resisting the space they're going to take, the hardest it's going to be on the whole triad, parents, baby, right? So really, women, track your cycle, and men, ask your partner how is their cycle, and just get acquainted with that superpower that we have, really.
Yeah. So simple, but yet so effective. Absolutely effective. I love sharing that with you. So to finish off the podcast, I ask all my guests these questions. Lysiane, what is your best kept natural health hack? Let's share it.
It is totally not a hack, but this is the most fundamental thing in my life, is sleep. Like, it's like a second part of my life, because I'm a lucid dreamer. And I believe that because I get so much restorative sleep preventively in the night, because I go to bed at like 9:30, then in early hours, 4 to 7 a.m., I get super awesome dreams that I can interact with and can like either offload like stuff that are going on my subconscious, or have fucking cool dreams, like literally. And this is really the best natural anti-stress remedy. Like, do not believe your brain or your body when you sleep deprived, because it will tell you that it wants the pizza. It will give you negative thoughts about how lame you are of staying in front of the TV. It will make you irritable towards your partner, your job, your friends. It will give you anxiety. And really, it's potentially just because you need a good nap or a good night's sleep. And I hate when people say, I'll sleep when I'll die, because I'm like, well, good for you, because you're going to die sooner than you think.
Because I love that. I love that. That is absolutely great. That's absolutely great. I love that we're going to end it on that note. I love that. I love that. So where can people find you? So what are you doing at the moment? Where can people find you?
Okay, so at the moment, I'm really focusing on growing a little life inside me. I am 7 weeks pregnant, and going through all the hoops of early pregnancy, which is not fun for me right now. I'm not gonna lie, and I kind of report on that on my Instagram mostly. So you can find me at Lysiane_Chance, and I'm just being honest. I'm just like, it's just more like a diary where I'm like, here's my reality, and offloading my thoughts and what's happening in my life. And I've stopped giving nutritional coaching for burnt out women, but it's still a passion of mine, and I still strongly believe that it's important. So yeah, I still talk a lot about this, and thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about my two passions, burnout and fertility, together. It's just beautiful.
I love that. I love that. And I'm going to put your link down below so people can access you and find out. Please add her on Instagram, see her journey, see what things go through, talk to her. You're absolutely amazing. I love that you've come on, and thank you so much for joining us on the Natural Health Podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Mahela. Long vie to your podcast.
Thank you for joining us at the Natural Health Podcast. And remember, the missing link between success and failure is your health.